Hey, folks, welcome to episode 185 of Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. As you all know, we are a Paul McCartney talk show mainly dealing with the solo career of the one and only Paul McCartney. I'm one of your two co hosts, Tom Hunyadi, and you may know me from my other show, Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. At least I hope you've seen it a couple times, but
Once
but
or twice.
that's where we once or twice. That's where we talk about all things solo Beatles, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and we have a great time doing that with Ken Michaels, Kid O'Toole, and Joe Mayo, and myself. And I'm joined by my partner in crime here on this show. He is Andy Nichols. He's my backwards traveler, my partner in crime. Andy, what's going on?
Not much, brother. Good to be back. And I'm great to have another fellow Beatles podcaster in the YouTube land join us for today. And, welcome, Tone.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, Tone, as you know, is we know him as Tony Shelley. He's also probably more well known on the YouTube world as Beatley Tone Beatles channel. And Tone, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Tone, I just have
yeah,
to say at the top, your channel's been a great addition, and you've been the only person to do a real deep dive into the archive sets and actually looking at the actual boxes and this books and pointing out the bits that you like out of the best of them, which I thought was a really, really great thing because we've talked ad nauseum about these boxes, but you actually physically showed them, which was a really cool thing because, as we know, a lot of them are rare and out of print, and
yep.
you're showing people and younger fans what's in these things and making them go on to Discogs and eBay and paying them sort of prices for them.
Yeah.
That was well done.
I thought that there's so many people that are still trying to get ones that they've missed, and they're so expensive now that I thought it'd be a good idea if people could see what was actually in the box and what they're going to be paying this huge amount of money for.
Yeah. And he also did a really great video on the average price of these what they're fetching for, what they went for when they were released, and what they go for now. So check that one out too, because Tone did a nice job of actually just showing the breakdown of the pricing and how absurd it's got with these archive releases.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today's show, we got Tone on. We've been talking about doing something together, and we're gonna do 5 things that we think Paul McCartney has gotten right in his solo career, and it can be, music-wise, it could be business-wise, keeping his personal life out of it. We know he did the right thing by marrying Linda, so that's an easy one. So we're gonna keep that one.
And we know he did the wrong thing as well.
Yes, we.
Right. But then he did the right thing by giving her the boot. So
yeah, right. Anyways, but before we get to that, we're going to talk to Andy and Tone about 2 things that they've been to recently. And Andy, you just got to meet Peter Gabriel during a book signing, right?
I did. I got to meet one of my icons. As you YouTubers know, I'm a huge prog rock fan and a Genesis fan and a Peter Gabriel fan. And I had a chance to go to New York and meet him and get a copy of this book, which is titled "Do Everything Better with Music: Reverberation." But he didn't actually write the book. He actually only wrote the foreword. The book is written by a chap by the name of Keith Blanchard, and the foreword was written by Peter. And it was a nice event. It was at the historic Strand bookstore, which has been in a New York City staple since 1927. So, and the book signing was on the 3rd floor in the rare book room. So this wasn't like a Barnes and Nobles. This was a true, authentic New York City bookstore. And we queued up in the line outside. I don't know. At that time, there was maybe 10 people in front of us. So got up there and met him, had a nice exchange with him for a minute. Told him that, I show a lot of his videos to a lot of my students. And he said, well, are they freaked out by the costumes? I said, no, they're not. And he goes, that music's very old. He goes, thanks for keeping it alive. And I said, thanks for making it. And I'm looking forward to seeing your new album and tour. And shook my hand and went on my way.
Cool. Very cool. So, I mean, 10 people in front of you. I mean, did you get to see how long the line was behind you at any chance?
Yeah, by the time we queued up, the signing was he was doing 2 hours worth of signings from 3 to 5 p.m. New York time. So we got there about, I don't know, 1:30, and there was already 10 people in front of us. By the time we had started to go in, the line had probably stretched 2 city blocks.
Okay.
You know, so and there was no guarantee. Like by 5 o'clock, he was leaving. So
right, yeah, and that's the thing though, because some musicians or authors or whatever, they'll keep signing, until everybody's done. I've been to a couple signings myself, and you're like, you feel like, okay, you're like 200-300 people deep, and you're like, okay, we're gonna miss this. We're not gonna get there.
right.
The hour is gonna go by, but some of them keep on going until all of the books are signed. Some people even sign them beforehand,
Right.
and just hand them out to you.
Right. So which wasn't the case. That I didn't know if it was going to be like an assembly line where you just kind of go and go, but but they were pretty strict about what you could have signed. Now he was only signing the book. You couldn't bring in.
Right. You brought the lamb with you though. Did you end up bringing the lamb with you?
I did. Now here here was what I was going to do. If I was given the book ahead of time, I was going to just slide the CD insert into the book and go, here you go. Which they did, but it was very too quick, and I wanted to honor the request. They didn't want to do anything else, so I just put the CD book back in my my pocket. But some other people brought boxes of stuff, and I'm like, that's just that's not gonna work. If you're gonna be coy about it and slick, you got to try to do it the right way. And I just didn't want to. I didn't want to. It was a nice moment, and I wanted to leave it alone as that. And he was shook my hand, and we were wearing masks, but because obviously he's just about 70. I think he was born in 52, so he's up there, and he's taking the and he doesn't travel all that much, so especially in America in the last 20 years. So I've never seen him live. I've seen Genesis. So if he tours next year, I can't wait to go see him.
Yeah. It was a treat to be able to work that Peter Gabriel Sting show a few years ago and get to hear him. So I did get to hear, and I saw a few minutes of it, but to hear him, sing some of these songs was really cool.
Didn't Sting open up with Dancing with the Moonlit Night?
Well, it was just that opening line.
Right, yeah.
But Tone, are you Gabriel Genesis fan at all or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm not really a prog fan, which is odd because of my age. When I was a teenager, everyone at school was into prog, into Genesis, into Yes, and I tried loads of times, but I couldn't really. It didn't really strike a chord with me, and it was kind of just at the time where I'd sort of discovered the Beatles. So there's everyone else, in the class that are into all these prog rock bands, and there's me who's just discovered a band that doesn't exist anymore. But like when you said about the things that you took the Lamb Lies Down in Broadway to Peter Gabriel, that's pretty normal for these signings. They'll only sign the thing that they're promoting, because when I met Paul, he casually drops into the conversation. It was around 2005, and he was promoting the kiddies book that he wrote, High in the Clouds. That's what he was signing. But I took my Chaos and Creation booklet to sign, and that's what I wanted it. That's what I really wanted him to sign. But they said straight away he's not signing anything else apart from the book, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah, they're very strict with that.
Yeah. Well, some people don't care.
To get through,
Right. Yeah. There's so many people that you can't spend so much time, signing, boxes full of stuff. Like Annie said here, people bringing boxes full of stuff.
Yeah. That's right.
But I've seen that too.
Yeah. We were told we had 90 seconds with him. That was it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
To move on.
Well, yeah. As people, we like to see what we can get away with, and obviously, if we could bring something in for him to sign, we're gonna try. But that was cool, Annie. Glad that happened for you, and finally glad you got to meet one of your heroes. That was really cool.
Yeah.
But Tone, you also got to go to a show where Andy and I, we've got to see Mark Lewison a couple times. Now, I got to see a presentation he did during the White Album Symposium back in 18, and then this past April, Andy and I were both at the fest, and he did another presentation there, which was really cool. But
we met him.
We just got to spend some time with him too, which was really great.
Yeah.
Tone, you went to this show that he did now called Evolver, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've never met him, and this was the first time that I'd seen him live. And what a great presenter he is of stories. Right. Really great. I mean, it was all about it was all about the year 1962, and he demonstrated the stories with. He had an artifact up on the screen. He had 62 artifacts because it was 1962, and he talked probably for about 2 minutes on each thing, starting with the sort of the January the 1st, the Decca auditions, and the artifact that he used for that was the alarm clock that Brian Epstein gave the Beatles because they were notoriously bad at waking up, because they went down to London for New Year's Eve, I think, and he was worried that they wouldn't get up in time for the audition, and he told some great stories and some real, revelations, things that I didn't know about, like, things like the fact that the Beatles weren't turned down by Decca. They were offered a deal, and it was Brian Epstein that decided that he didn't want to. He said that he'd been offered something else by another label, obviously Parlophone, and he showed on the screen the letter that that Brian Epstein sent to Dick Rowe, which was this was a revelation, really. And it's just a really great show, really well presented, very entertaining. He's quite funny at times, and it was I was really glad that I went to it. It was really good.
That's really interesting, Tone, because I mean, the accepted history in the 60 years on now is that it's though they just turned him down. Dick Rowe from Decca turned him down, and Mike Smith, I believe, was the one guy who recorded him, just turned him down. But that's not the case.
I know, it absolutely blew my mind, that did, because I mean, Dick Rowe, poor bloke, he went to his grave being known as the bloke who turned down the Beatles.
Right, because that became the accepted truth.
Yeah, and it did, and I think that was sort of cemented in Brian Epstein's book, The Cellar Full of Noise. I think he sort of cemented that story, but it appears that it wasn't true, and I don't know whether they were actually presented with a rock solid contract, but there was obviously some sort of agreement that that Decca would record the Beatles, and Lewison showed this letter from Brian Epstein saying thank you for your offer, but no thanks.
Right, and that's the level of research that Lewison he will look and see what's out there, and he'll go through every artifact to try to find and prove a point.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and you kind of got the impression that he does. He seems to go out of his way to try and either prove or disprove, well-known stories. The accepted fact.
I mean, because what do we? Sorry, Tom. I was just going to say, I love the fact that even when you look at he's explained how he'll go back and look into, censuses and when people bought houses and where people lived. I'm just looking the amount of research and level of research he's done to prove a point. He'll go back into tax records, everything to try to find anything linking an article of truth to it, which is just amazing.
That was one of the stories that he told, because there was a story that Paul went down to London to meet his friend Ivan Vaughan, and they went out to a club, and they crashed at Ivan Vaughan's place, which was a place in Great Portland Street, and he tried to find out what the address was, and he went back to the electoral records, found the address, and when he found the address, he realized that the exact same address was the address that Jane Asher's family lived in. previously.
Right.
I mean, they moved out to Wimpole Street, and that's where, you know, when Paul spent some time living with the Ashers, that was in Wimpole Street, wasn't in that actual place. But it was just a bit of a coincidence that the Ashers had lived in this place that Paul McCartney had stayed in 1962.
Right.
But that's
mother,
the sort of level
of
detail that he goes into, and that's why it takes him so long to write his books.
Yeah. Yes. That's true. And then I'm sure he's not purposely trying to debunk these stories that we've known all these years. It's just that he wants to find the truth. And, even with the first Tune In book, discovering that EMI had signed the Beatles and it wasn't him that actually signed them, was a big deal as well, and I won't get into the story about that if you haven't read the book, and well, hopefully you have read Tune In, but just the level of research, Andy, like you said, to debunk some of these stories,
because
that we've known all these years.
These books, and I understand, I know we're frustrated as fans. We want to read it. We want to dissect it. But this will be the final word. When these books are out, I don't see any need to hold on to any of my other Beatle books. I really don't. I mean, maybe for nostalgia's sake on a couple of them, but but this will be the final word that hundreds of years from now, people will look back and say, that's the book you need to read. And I think that's why he's taking this approach.
Yeah. And the takeaway that I had from the show is that Mark Lewison is a seeker of the truth.
Yes.
And he'll go to whatever lengths he has to try and discover the truth, because obviously he wasn't there at the time, but he's very interested. He's only interested in the truth. And I guess as fans, we're lucky that we've got him doing this research for us, I think.
Yeah, and Tom has surmised over the years when we've talked that he thinks possibly he's just researching writing the next two at the same time. Maybe he's going.
Yeah,
you said that, Tom.
I think he's just researching both of them right now. So then that way, when book 2 is done, it won't be as long of a wait for book 3. And I'm thinking it's going to be at least 4 or 5 books myself. I mean, I just don't see how, if you're gonna look. Book 2. Book 1 ended right at New Year's Eve at 62. 62. I mean. That means book 2 has to go from 63 to 65 at least, and then or 66, and then book 3 has to go to 67 to
where Mark's going to have to do a lot of more research, especially here in America, is the years when the Beatles were on tour here in America. So you wonder the calendar, the touring schedule, all the tours, the history of the tours, and what went on with them. That's going to take a lot of that. That will really kind of have to mean that Mark will have to spend his time in America, maybe researching and talking to people and anybody that might be still surviving to do that. So, and then again, he still needs to finance himself, which is why he does these tours. So I understand.
Yeah. I mean, it took him 1,500 pages to get to 1962.
Exactly.
How big it's gonna get.
I don't see this being a 3-book series myself. I think that's what he had said. He wanted to keep it to 3.
He did ridicule himself right at the top of the show, where he just came on stage before saying anything, sat down at a desk with a typewriter and just started typing B, E, and then he said, what he explained, I know that you're all waiting for the second book, and I have to do these sort of shows to help finance that, because I haven't got a day job, sort of thing,
Right.
Did you get to meet him afterwards?
I didn't, but I did see on YouTube that he did more than one show. And at the show that I went to, which I think was the first one in the series, he didn't do a Q&A, but I saw on YouTube there wasn't any video from it, but it was just the audio that he'd obviously done a Q&A at the end of one of the shows. So no, I didn't get to meet him, but he was going to be signing copies of his book, and you could have a word with him if you bought a copy of the book. But we didn't. We just went home.
I gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, glad you had the opportunity for that. I mean, again, if you have an opportunity to see anything Mark Lewison does, please go see it. I think we all can highly recommend you see him do any kind of presentation or any talk or lecture about the Beatles, that they're all fascinating and worth the time.
Yeah.
So,
amen.
I heard that he was trying to strike a deal with Netflix to because the show was recorded, so he's trying to get a deal with Netflix to get it
that
on
would be excellent.
Netflix, and if it comes on, everyone should watch it, because it's 2 hours of great entertainment and information.
Cool. Thank you, Tone, for that. Let's talk about your YouTube channel quick before we get to the topic here. Talk about starting it, why you started it, your love for the Beatles, solo Beatles, all that stuff.
Okay. Well, I started my channel in August last year, and I was kind of inspired to start it by the All Things Must Pass box had just come out, and I was watching people's videos, and I was thinking, this looks really easy. And I was fine. I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with that. And I thought, I think I might quite like to do this. And obviously, when I started doing it, I found that it's not easy at all. And it's really quite difficult, and it takes up quite a bit of time. But I'm really loving doing it. I'm getting some really great feedback from the videos that I'm doing on my channel. And I kind of thought, first of all, that it would be just a solo Beatles channel, because there just seems to be so many Beatles channels out there. But it's impossible to ignore the band when when talking about the Beatles, and it's kind of expanded to a bit of everything. I think so. I do all the usual things, like reviews and views, and started doing some deep dives into the albums, and all the ranking stuff, and obviously news when it comes out, unboxings, all the usual stuff, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean it can be fun, it can be time consuming, a little nerve wracking, it is, because we all want to accomplish the same thing. We all want to have a good time. We all want to be successful at it too. And and the fun part is trying to be the first one to report a news item, or do an unboxing, or review. So.
I know. I'm really quite nervous about my delivery from Amazon on Friday, because we've got postal strikes here.
That's right.
Oh no!
I'm getting a date of November the 1st at the moment, and I'm hoping that that's going to change during the week. Right. And if it doesn't, I've got to kind of make a decision whether to cancel that order, get myself up to London on Friday,
and just go get it,
and go into a record shop and buy it. So yeah, so I'm a bit nervous. I'm hoping it's going to arrive on delivery day. But look, everyone wants to be the first to be unboxing, and obviously not everyone can be, and people will watch it if they want to watch it, and if they don't, they don't. But I'm enjoying having the channel, meeting lots of people virtually, obviously. But it's great. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I kind of thought it would be something that I might like to do when I retire, and I was just sort of trying it. I mean, I haven't retired yet, but I thought it might be something that I might like to do, and it is. So I'll be when I do retire, I'll dedicate more time to it. But
do you consider yourself a hardcore collector? I mean, what's your level of collecting Beatles and solo Beatles stuff?
Well, I like to have everything at least once. Musically, I'm not really a collector of memorabilia like my friend Beatle Brad, who's got amazing collection. I love watching his videos and seeing all the stuff that he's got, but he's more a collector of artifacts and memorabilia and stuff like that. And I'm not really a collector of stuff like that. But musically, I'm a collector of everything. So I don't stick to just CDs or vinyl. I like to have both.
Yeah, you didn't get that. I mean, you got like one or two out there, but you didn't get like the 7, 8, 9 different stores out here in the States, releasing McCartney 3, you
No,
know.
no, it was impossible. It was impossible to keep up. I got
Yeah.
my original. I mean, I've got enough McCartney 3. To be fair, I've got the. I mean, when it came out, I got the CD and I got the black vinyl. That was what I ordered. Since then, I've got the yellow and black one, not the really rare one that's going for about
I know what you mean. The
£3
splatter.
now. Yeah, the splatter one.
Right.
I got that one, and I got the Japanese SHM CD with the 4 extra tracks. So
yes, yeah.
So I like to have everything that's gone out musically. I don't go for I don't have to have every other artist that that a Beatles played on or anything like that. I don't have to have all of those, but I like to have all the stuff that is actually in the name of the Beatles and in the name of the 4 ex-Beatles. I draw the line at children of the Beatles.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear you there, buddy. I hear you there. Did Andy had mentioned, you're doing the videos on the archive stuff right now. Did you start collecting those in 2010 as they were coming out, or did you, come late to that?
No, I started right at the beginning. I'm so glad that I did when you see the prices of them now. But even then, when the Band on the Run one came out, the first one, it was still about 50 quid, and that was at that time that was the most that I'd ever paid for one album.
Right, you look at it then, it's all relative, right? 50 quid for that. So when you look at it, it's like that's a lot then, but now 10, 12 years later.
Yeah. And then it's like 300 quid. Well, I'm glad I paid 300 quid for the big barn box. But looking at the prices of it now, but that's a lot of money, and it came right in that period in 2018 where we had the White Album in October.
It was a crazy fourth quarter
in October. The Imagine box set, then the White Album in November, and then the big barn box in December.
And Egypt Station in September.
September. That was that fourth quarter was crazy.
That was an expensive year, and people saying, well, they're not going to be putting out sometime in New York City because they don't want to clash it with Revolver, but they didn't care about that in 2018.
Yeah, exactly.
4 years ago.
No, 18 was they didn't care what was coming out, and 19 as well. They did. I mean, there was still stuff. I mean, coming out, so this thing, whether or not it's going to interfere with the sales of a different product, no, I don't believe that one bit.
No.
Anyways, but yeah, so that's what's the channel's called Beatley Tone's Beatles channel, right?
That's it. Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about more of that at the end of the show. We'll do some plugs and all that good stuff. But again, today we're going to be talking about things McCartney did right throughout his solo career. It can be the smallest. 5 things. It could be the smallest of things, of whether or not he just woke up one morning and decided he wanted to go to Africa to record an album, or or anything like that.
Or he watched a video on tribal Indians and then wrote a really crappy song after watching it.
That's right. I got to post this on the Facebook because as we're reading a certain book that's coming out in December, Andy, I did find the name of the show. I found the 2 parts on YouTube. Yeah, so I was watching that, and
the certain book mentions the name of the program.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, so that's it's fun. So maybe I'll post it on our YouTube channel. I'm in our Facebook channel, and you can watch it if you guys want to. But anyways, so this could be the smallest of things or the biggest of things. I mean, whatever we feel that McCartney got right. Throughout his solo career. And if you got a list too, please in the comment section, tell us a few things that you think McCartney got right in his career. And then we'll all take turns going first. But Tone, since you're the guest here, for number 5, we're gonna have you go first this time around here, my friend.
Is this going to be my least important one then?
Yes.
It could be, yeah,
Well,
yeah. If
whatever.
you want,
Okay.
I mean, you can
5 to
rank
1,
it if
yeah.
you want.
I
mean,
hadn't actually ranked mine, but I
right.
can do that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to talk. My number 5 is Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, and I think that when this came out, it was at a difficult time for coming off the back of Driving Rain, which isn't as bad an album as a lot of people think. There's moments in that album that I dig, but I think that he needed something different, and I think he got it. And the decision to use Nigel Godrich as the producer for this, I think this is the first time that he just handed over the production to someone else and not co-produced for a while. But the fact that he used Godrich, who was, he produced Radiohead, which were arguably the biggest band in the world at that particular time, and he's chosen someone who isn't a yes man. And I think quite a lot of times that he's picked a man, he's picked a partner who will just go along with what he wants and not say, no, actually that's a really rubbish idea. And I think Godrich did that for that album, and I really think that was a turning point in his career, a kind of a latter career peak, because I don't think he's made a bad album since then. I think that was a turning point for him, and it's an album that I really love. It's very moody. I mean, a lot of people complain that there's no upbeat songs on that, although there is Fine Line, which is
Fine Line, yeah.
Fine Line's a little bit upbeat, I think, but it is quite a mellow album. It's the first album that we really hear the beginnings of Paul's old man's voice, I think.
Good observation.
It was a little bit of it on Driving Rain, but by the time we get to Chaos, we are starting to hear that deterioration. And the fact that we've got that, the fact that the songs on here are so strong. I mean, I don't think there's a bad song on this album, and I think that he really did get that right. And I think the key decision was giving the production to Nigel Godrich.
Yeah, which I think George Martin recommended him to Paul.
Right, yeah.
It's, sometimes it's good, I guess, to have a yes man, but every once in a while it was good to have somebody to just tell him, no, that song sucks.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, Pete, I think even Elvis Costello was a little bit of a fanboy, I think, because he said, go on, please get your Hofner bass out and play that. I mean, Elvis Costello, is a big name, especially in the UK, and but I still think he was a little bit of a fanboy. Right. And Eric Stewart as well. I don't think Eric Stewart would really have, put up a fight. And obviously Benny Lane is his other collaborator in his solo career.
Yeah. To think that he didn't like, like a song like Riding the Vanity Fair at first, and I just, which I think is his best song in the last 20 years or so,
it's
22 years. It is. It's a great track, but but at least he fought for it, and he got it on there. But yeah, I mean, it's a masterpiece of an album. We all know that, and yeah, he needs that from time to time, and I know we'll never get another Nigel produced McCartney record, but at least we have
one.
We have one.
Yeah.
But that's a good pick. I like that one. I actually, had that down too, but I'm not gonna But Andy, let's move to you. What's your first your pick?
This is least, again, I'm going to do least to most important in my opinion. And I think number 5 is the constant touring cycle since 2002 and being out there again and starting it up again after the release of Driving Rain and doing the Back in the US World Tour, starting it in 2002, after Linda's passing, Driving Rain, getting the band together and being out there. I mean, we've got Driving World Tour, Back in the World, the 04 tour, the US tour, the Secret Tour of 07, Summer Live in 2009, the Good Evening Europe tour, the Up and Coming tour, the On the Run tour, the Out There tour, the One-on-One tour, the 2018 Secret Gigs, Freshen Up, and Got Back. I mean, with a couple of breaks here and there, he's been not, obviously COVID aside, he has been out there and available for newer generations to see. And, with that gap in touring, 89, 90, and then again in 93, 94, very small touring compared to these bigger touring. And I think to be able to find in his 60s at that point, he had just turned 60 in 2002, to then go out again and be as prolific of a tour as he has been over the last 20 years is pretty incredible, and a pretty cool testament to be able to reach so many newer fans. And yes, their the set lists are Beatle heavy, as we talked about in our live show that we did. But just, to be able to be out there for over the last 20 years and tour across the world, to see millions of people that have never got a chance to see him in the 70s or the 80s is pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. Even though they are, Beatle heavy, and I think that's one of the things. He is mainly. Ringo doing it a little bit during his shows, but he's carrying that Beatles mantle with him now. And that's a big part of his show, and it's probably the main reason why all these thousands of people are going, because they know he's going to do, half the set list, or more than half the set list is going to be Beatles songs.
I really do think that's the reason, and I know that we kind of want him to do these deep cuts. Us hardcore fans, we want him to do deep, but a lot of the people that are going to these shows are not hardcore fans. They just want to go and see a Beatle. They don't necessarily know his solo catalogue as well. But they do know Beatles songs, because everybody knows Beatles songs, and they want the chance to see a living legend, I guess, and that's why these gigs, they sell out in minutes. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it is incredible.
Yeah,
and hopefully you guys get a chance to see him again too. You guys got to Glastonbury. I know he was supposed to do that European tour during the. Was it 2020 he was supposed to do that, but unfortunately that got canceled right off the bat. So hopefully you guys get another chance.
Yeah, I'd like one more crack at it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
What do you got, Tom? What's yours?
All right, my number one is again, starting from maybe least important to most important, I guess. Helping other artists. He's been so prolific throughout his solo career, even during the Beatles, giving his time or songs or vocals, production to other artists, and I really appreciate that about McCartney. Whether or not it's loaning his vocal talents or giving a song like 4th of July to John Christie, or Dave Edmunds calling him during one of his busier periods during he's filming and recording Broad Street, and he says, hey, you got a song for the Everly Brothers, and then give me a few days later, and then all of a sudden he's just got this classic of a song of On the Wings of a Nightingale. Especially during his last 20 years, working helping out Dave Grohl, or doing a reunion with Nirvana, or giving out a song like Songbird in a Cage, out just helping other artists. And and getting his, I guess that maybe helps him in a way too, because that gets his name out to another fan base. Even working with Kanye and Rihanna, that's also getting his name out there to another fan base, which he has done a lot.
Yeah, he's always wanted to stay
exactly.
hip.
Yeah. But the fact that he doesn't have to do anything for anybody, right?
No.
He's Paul freaking McCartney. He doesn't have to do anything for anybody. But the fact that he continues to help other artists, whether it's adding vocals to Brian Wilson's A Friend Like You, or drumming on Sunday Rain for the Foo Fighters, just stuff like that. I just think it's really cool that he continues to do that. Which he has done throughout since the 60s, really.
Sure.
Giving, what's the song that he gave to Peter and Gordon, World Without Love. I think that was I think that was like the first thing he did, but and still doing it. What's that?
Woman. They also wrote the song Woman.
Yeah, Woman as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so that's my number 5.
Good pick.
Okay, Andy, we'll go 4 with
okay.
you.
4 for me. This is a little bit of a different one. I'm going into the Wings era. I like the fact that in the 70s he chose to record a lot of the albums on location and not in
location.
London.
Okay.
Ram in New York, Band on the Run in Nigeria, Venus and Mars in New Orleans, going to Nashville. I think traveling proved a lot. It kind of gave him a spark to kind of for creativity and write differently. And I think that you hear that on those albums. Ram is a very polished professional album with good session musicians and stuff like that, and being in another environment, and the stuff that he's done at home obviously is just as good too. McCartney and albums that were recorded properly in London, EMI, like Wildlife or Red Rose Speedway. We liked it, but the albums that he actually went out and made on location, I think really kind of gave those albums a really unique feel that retained their awesomeness, almost 50 years later to hear that stuff. It was a big deal to do. And maybe there were tax reasons for that, which I'm sure there was. But again, the aspect of just whisking your whole family up and going and doing this in these exotic locations, especially with Band on the Run, I think was pretty bold to do. I think he needs to be commended for that.
Especially Band on the Run, because that's a really risky location to record an album, I think.
That's just a risky place to go in general.
Yeah,
with a young family.
He turns up and the studio's not finished and all the rest of it.
Right. So very, very primitive, very, very brave of him to take his young family again. And listen, did he have the means to do it? Of course he did. But I think it was pretty cool. He could have just stayed in the UK or in Campbelltown in Scotland and then just done everything. But he said, what, let's travel and let's get out and try to see what's out there and how does that change our sound? How does that evolve our sound as a band with Wings? And you hear that with Sally G, and you hear that in Junior's Farm and everything that they did in Nashville, the Country Hams, and all those things. So I think the ability to come out and just go anywhere and record, I think was a really a nice defining aspect of Wings.
Yeah. I mean, where's the castle that they recorded part of Back to the Egg in? Was that
Kent?
France?
Kent.
Yeah, okay.
Kent.
Yeah, Kent.
Yeah. No, I think that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Lynn Castle.
Yeah.
Kent. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I like that one. All right, I'll go second here. Now, imagine a world where you buy a Beatles record and you turn it over and you see that logo.
Oh,
Abco.
Oh.
I think. Listen, say what you will about him suing the other three. Back in, I think it was the last day in 1970, and then you can read about this in the docket book. You never give me your money, and I know Cozen and Sinclair, they're getting into that on this McCartney Legacy book as well. But suing the other three to get the Klein, to get him out of the picture. In the long run, that helped preserve the Beatles' legacy. And, again, I don't care what you think of McCartney, this was the right thing to do in order to help save, the McCartney's legacy, the Beatles' legacy. It would have sucked if you turn it over and then the Abco, Klein running the Apple or the Beatles' legacy just, it just irks me the wrong way. Knowing what we know about him now, reading that Klein book, and what he did to Sam Cooke, and just the others, it's just,
Bravo choice, partner. Bravo choice. Yeah. That's also in my list, but it's a little higher up.
Right.
He was a gangster, which is probably why John liked him.
Right.
But yeah,
absolutely,
it was the right decision, and all three of them, came round to the fact that it was the right decision, and they kind of reunited against Klein. After that, I just did a deep dive on Living in the Material World. I was talking about the Sue You, Sue Me blues song, and when he did that live, he he changed it to I've forgotten what the lyric was now, but bring your lawyer and I'll bring mine. And he changed it when he did the US tour, bring your lawyer and I'll bring Klein. when he did the 74 US tour.
Nice.
So absolutely, it was the right decision. Horrible for him at the time.
Yeah. Yes. Right.
Because the last thing you want to be doing is suing your three best mates.
Right.
But he did it for the greater good.
And history will show. Will show that.
Right.
Right. And the fact that even Lennon in his lifetime admitted that will also go a long way, because you can watch that clip of John saying, "Well, Paul was. Let's just say that Paul was right in this," and
right. Which I'm sure was not an easy thing for him to do.
No. Absolutely not. And we read about all this, and you'll read about all this stuff now, but all that, everything that ties, that famous September 9th meeting that we keep reading about. No, boy. It's like, and now 3 or 4 years later, you were right. You put me through hell and back, but that's what Paul should be saying. You dragged me over the coals here, but it was the right decision.
I mean, I think, if I remember correctly, I mean, he had to dish own money out of his own pocket too, because the other three then sued Klein, and I think he ended up having to dish out $5 million of his own money to give to Klein, because Klein sued them as well. And he never signed the contract for them to be for him to be his manager. So he took it as well.
Yeah, he did. Can't go wrong with that one. So, Tom, what's your fourth one?
Yeah.
Right, I'm going Glastonbury.
The new one.
The new one, because I wanted to talk about this one because I don't think that anyone outside of the UK has seen this gig in its entirety. So I wanted to talk about that, because I think that the BBC, I'm right, aren't I? I think the BBC restricted views from overseas.
Yes.
Which is a real shame. And I just wanted to sort of explain how Glastonbury works for those that don't know. So Glastonbury is the biggest UK festival, and it happens every year in June. And people that apply for tickets, they apply the year before, and they don't know who's going to be on the bill. Okay, they just apply for tickets because they want to go to Glastonbury for the weekend. So consequently, when you have Paul McCartney playing at Glastonbury, he's not playing in front of his own fans, right? He's playing in front of rock fans generally. And I know you both of you guys, you managed to see one of the shows on the Got Back tour, and I was kind of I was following it on YouTube. I was watching people's phone clips, and phone clips aren't the best thing to judge by, because they're filmed on phones for a start, and they're usually filmed about 3 miles from the stage. But what I'd seen, especially early on in the tour, his voice was not in good shape, and he started every show with Can't Buy Me Love, and Can't Buy Me Love is such a difficult song to start with, because the vocals come in on beat 1. And so it doesn't sort of go round the chords before, so he can pitch himself before he comes in with the vocals. It's bang, right, beat 1, he's in with the vocals. And what I'd seen of these clips, none of the Can't Buy Me Love versions that I saw were all that good. And I was kind of really worried about him playing Glastonbury, because Glastonbury is shown live on the BBC, so everyone sees it. And although sort of fans are far more forgiving, the general public are not. And I just thought that Twitter would go in a meltdown, and he was just going to get a load of stick coming off of the Got Back tour, which admittedly, by the time he got to Jersey, I think that he was in pretty good form by then. It had improved as he'd gone through. But when he came out and he started off with Can't Buy Me Love, and he was just bang on the money, and the crowd were like behind him right from the word go, and he went into Junior's Farm. At the end of Junior's Farm, the crowd just like spontaneously just bursts into Happy Birthday. You got like 200,000 people singing him Happy Birthday, and that must have been the most amazing boost for him. He's not playing in front of his own fans, he's playing in front of fans of general rock fans, and he just went from strength to strength to strength in that gig. It was just absolutely brilliant, and he really did. He pulled out all the stops when I thought that it was going to be a bit disastrous, but it was really great. I mean, when he went off at the end of the set, obviously Hey Jude was the last song, as it usually is. And all throughout the time that he was off the stage, they're waiting for him to come back for the encore, instead of just shouting out more, like they have at every other gig I've ever been to by anyone, the crowd were just na the whole way until they came back on the stage. It was just amazing. And I just thought it was brilliant, and he just really came through in a time of adversity. And Twitter did go into meltdown, but they were just absolutely loved. They were saying it was the best Glastonbury set ever by anyone, and just absolutely fantastic reviews. And ironically, the only thing that people complained about was he didn't do enough Beatles songs.
Wow.
It's true. I remember that.
Yeah, because people don't know Junior's Farm, and they don't know Letting Go, and they don't know Come On To Me, and and so they obviously people sitting at home watching it on TV. They're on
this
Twitter.
Wasn't a full set either, right?
Why is he playing the Beatles songs? So,
I mean, he didn't do his normal full set, or did he?
He did pretty much the set as he done Got Back. I don't think he didn't do Jet, which I think he did on some dates.
Later on,
he did. I saw her standing there, which I don't think he did on Got Back. Apart from that, it was pretty much the same set. I think he changed a couple of things, didn't he, during the Got Back tour? He started off doing Women, Wives, and he dropped
Wives, and then switched it.
You bring up a really good point there. There seems to be like a high watermark with that Glastonbury show. That I'm telling you, his family was there and stuff. I would not be surprised if that was his final gig in the UK, because it was so well received.
Well, if you want to go out with a bang, that is from a selfish point of view, I'd like to see him do one more tour. But if he goes out there, then full credit to him. He has gone out on an absolute high. And it was just brilliant. I mean, the BBC, they've got cameras in the crowd, and you can just see the joy on people's faces. They're young people, they're much younger than me, which is the age of his normal crowd, but young people absolutely digging him, and it was brilliant.
And he's back on something about him playing back on home turf, being back in the UK. There's something, there's something to be said about that as well, too.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one. All right. Does that conclude number 4?
That's number 4 in the books now. So yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna go. I'll start off with number 3, and mine is the Archives, the Archive Series. I think this was absolutely a great decision to put his albums. I think his albums deserve box sets. Not every artist's career could say that each album deserves a box set, whether or not we're just going to get like the first 15, 16, 17 albums of his. Excuse me. But and we have complained a little bit. I mean, some of the audio on the bonus content has not been great, but I mean, and Pipes of Peace were one of those box sets. But what we got It's Not On, which nobody has never heard a single thing about.
There was not a written entry about It's Not On in any book before that came out.
Right. Exactly. But I think every album that he's ever made deserves a box set, and the fact that we're finally starting to, in 2010 we started to get them with Band on the Run, and then whether or not we're in a break mode right now, which is fine, just as long as it continues. I don't care what it continues with. But these box sets and what they've brought to the table, audio wise, video wise, the books in there, just everything has been great. Again, say what you want about what you have to pay for them now, but I think they're worth it. They're great, and they're not collecting dust either. I listen to them often, and
Yep.
and they're important either way. I mean, as little as a box set is in the career span of 52 years, I still think it's important that he keeps making his music available to to new generations of fans. So that's
Yeah.
going to be my number 3.
And it's a good point because I think these box sets, I mean, really, once he eventually passes, these are the final word. This is the final word on all
Yeah.
this stuff. I mean, unless the estate feels they want to issue, to reissues or repackage them or whatever, which could happen. All these box sets, Paul and Beatles and John, this is the final word on these things. These guys are now approaching that age now where these archive sets are the legacy. And so you can look back, the photographs, the essays, to contextualize the period which they came from. That's what that's what these box sets do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're great. They are great. I don't think we'll get one for every album. I think Flaming Pie is probably the cut-off point.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Because I think it's a joint venture between the music and Linda's photos.
Right.
I think. So obviously, Linda.
And that's a fine spot to cut it off. I'm fine with leaving it. So. It doesn't need to go back. Although a chaos archive would be great.
Yeah.
But I think Flaming Pie is a natural breaking point because that was Linda's final appearance on an album, and everything we can look back. The last 23 years plus 5 years now, it's fine to look at it. Good pick.
I agree.
Tone's up.
Okay. Yeah, Tone, you're number 3.
What am I going to go for? My number 3. I know. I'm almost embarrassed to say this as my number 3, but I'm going for this.
Oh wow!
Okay.
Mull of Kintyre.
This is good because I was hoping that we'd get something crazy like this. I like this. Go ahead.
So I understand that that Mull of Kintyre wasn't a big hit in the States. I think Girls' School was played more in America, right. but here, even though here it was just Mull of Kintyre. Girls' School never got a look in. And so what we have to do is we have to put it into context as to why he got it right, because on the face of it, I'm 16 when this comes out, and I've discovered the Beatles about a year before, but now I'm just starting to I'm on my Beatles journey, but I'm also just starting to get into punk because that's coming out in the UK. That was starting to emerge into the music scene. And Paul McCartney, at the height of punk, brings out a Scottish waltz with bagpipes.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking,
piss off.
Oh my God, what is he doing? What is he doing? I mean, I was a compromised teenager. I'm going to a record shop and I'm buying this.
That's what you're really listening to.
And then the next week I'm buying that, and it was all a little bit weird. And but for some reason, this record, it struck a chord with the British public. I think it's at the time of year it came out. It's a little bit Christmassy.
Right. What month did it come out?
I think it came out in late November.
So Christmas. So it has that Christmassy feel to it.
Because it was the Christmas number 1 that year too. Yeah.
And the British public, they bought it in their droves. It was number 1 for 11 weeks. So it was the Christmas number 1, and it was number 1 for a couple of weeks in January after that as well.
Right.
And it is still the biggest selling non-charity single in the UK.
Right.
In the UK.
Is that crazy?
That is crazy. It sold over 2 million. It sold more than She Loves You.
Right.
In the UK.
They did the Top of the Pops for that too, right? for that single? Did
yeah,
they do
Top of the Pops, and they did the Mike Yarwood show. And Mike Yarwood was an impersonator.
Right.
He always had a Christmas special, and it's probably
there's a couple different versions of that. Right, there's a couple different versions of that.
There's a few different videos of,
but not anything of the full version with the edit. The Mike Yarwood is an edited version.
Yeah,
and I think there's I think one of the verses is out. I think it's not a full version on the Mike Yarwood show or the promotional. There's because you've got the promotional film that opens up with him strolling in the grass, right? And then there's the one that is kind of more smokier and stuff like that. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's right. But at the time, I'm thinking, I don't want this to be Wings' new single. I want the other side.
You want Girls School,
right? That's much more my thing. But when you get older, you taste mellow a bit, and you're not this sort of pop snob that you are when you're a teenager.
Right.
And now I'm thinking, bagpipes, not bad. So I've sort of come full circle, but again, this is one of the things that I think that he got right when everyone thought that he got it wrong. And that's my number 3.
Well, and again, the number one non-charity, non-charity single, best-selling original song, non-charity.
Because Bohemian Rhapsody, that has actually sold more copies, and that wasn't obviously originally it wasn't a charity record, but when they re-released it in 1991, when Freddie Mercury died, the proceeds of that went to the AIDS Foundation.
Oh, okay.
So it then became a charity.
Single.
It became a charity single.
So the biggest selling non-charity single in the UK is still Muller Kintyre / Girls School.
Girls School. So that's excluding Do They Know It's Christmas? Candle in the Wind, Elton John.
Which he's a part of. He's a part of. He's on the B side of that one too. So
he is.
Well, he just phoned in
of the 12-inch.
Right. Of the 12-inch, he just phoned in. He phoned in his appearance on that one. Right. So if you want to count that one, you can. But good pick, Tone. Good pick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Andy.
Number 3 for me. Tone mentioned this when we started ranking this a little bit. I'm surprised he mentioned this, but I think it's a really strong point. When we was talking about Nigel Godrich, but I think number 3, the fact when he reached out or his management reached out and got Elvis Costello back into the fold to team up with him. I think that was a really important time for him, coming off of the critical, backlash of Broad Street and the commercial failure of Press to Play. I know it did charted better in the UK than it did in the US. I think it got to number 30 here. So the Eric Stewart stuff, it was a really kind of obviously coming out of that period, Broad Street and all that other stuff. I think to find his management at the time, which I believe was a guy by the name of Richard Ogden, reached out to him and put the two of them together. And I think really Elvis Costello was a little bit of a fanboy, to your point, Tone. I think he definitely was, but he could look at him as somebody that could kind of give him a little bit of a muse and look back and, and kind of say, okay, well, how do we write songs again? And look, harkening back to his, relationship with John Lennon and obviously, and getting the Beatle bass back out again. And I think that was really the start of Paul accepting the terms of his Beatle past. So not to mention the great music they wrote together. So I think you can really credit Elvis Costello for the songs they co-wrote together that appeared on Flowers in the Dirt and later Off the Ground. But also Paul was like, okay, I'm going to, after that, Paul, does the album Flowers in the Dirt and then puts together a very pro Beatle heavy set list for the first time. So I think, and we talked about this on our live show, it was the first time we're hearing the Beatles songs live. So they're not so tired yet. So I think you can owe a debt of gratitude to Elvis Costello for really being the spark that Paul needed there around 87-ish or so when they first teamed up, and he helped him out with Back on My Feet, which was the first thing they kind of co-wrote, which was, and I think that's a great kind of a partnership that has largely, the Flowers in the Dirt archive set brought it back out to light, which was great, but that's a partnership that as time goes on, not that many people really talk about, and they should.
Yeah, and the fact that a lot of those songs are really good, and plus when we got that box set, two of the songs they never even used, whether it was on Paul's or Elvis's records. And in my opinion, I think 25 Fingers and Tommy's Coming Home are two of the better songs that they did together. So I really like that, Andy, because a lot of those songs. I mean, Playboy to a Man, I think is great. Veronica. Is really good. Obviously My Brave Face too.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think
Like Candy that he did.
So like Candy. Yeah.
And I think he viewed Elvis. He had worked with Eric Stewart, kind of a little bit, but Eric Stewart wasn't on the same level. I think he viewed Elvis Costello a little bit higher than.
Well, he's from Liverpool too, right? Elvis Costello's from Liverpool as well. Right?
Yeah.
So. Go ahead, Tom.
I mean, I'm a big 10cc fan, or I was a big 10cc fan. But I think by the time Paul got to Eric Stewart, I think Eric Stewart had kind of gone past his sell by date. I think, but Elvis Costello was still relevant, and I think he gave him a bit of grit. In his songs.
Yes.
I think he did talk quite a lot about that sort of backward and forward thing with. On she wants him to, or
she want her to.
Yeah, you want her to.
The call and response.
The call and response. Words and all that sort of thing. I think it gave him that a little bit of grit, and I just think My Brave Face is just everything.
Yeah,
everything that a pop song should be is in that song. It's brilliant.
1,000%. Everything about it, the nostalgia. The melody, it could be a Beatles song. It really could.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah, that was my number 3, having Elvis Costello come back into the mix.
All right. So what are we on number 2 now?
Yep.
Okay. Tone, why don't you go ahead and start with your number 2?
Okay, I'm gonna go with the 89-90 tour, the first time that he brought back Beatles songs wholesale. And I know that we're a little bit fed up with them now because he's been doing it for so long, but back then
and that's a good point. You got to think about it back then.
Again, going back into context, this was fantastic that he was doing all these songs, not only songs that we hadn't heard him do live before, but songs that the Beatles hadn't even done live, which was fantastic. One of the big highlights is the Sgt. Pepper, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, then going into that long sort of solo bit and then coming back with the reprise. Absolutely fantastic. But this was, the first time that he'd really, gone back to his Beatles catalogue and thought, I could do this one live. Things We Said Today. Absolutely brilliant. Eleanor Rigby we got for the first time. There was a couple that we've had before, like Fall on the Hill he'd done on the UK tour, and Got to Get You Into My Life he'd done on the UK tour, and Let It Be as well. But a lot of them were new to us. I saw her standing there, just brilliant, and sort of formed the basis of the Trip in the Life fantastic album, which I played a lot when it first came out, because firstly it had the live versions of the Flowers in the Dirt songs, which I love that album. But the fact that it had all these Beatles songs that I'd never heard him do live. I did go to one day on that tour, Wembley Arena. Yeah, I think it's the one that because in the book they tells you which show.
Right.
I think it was the one where they recorded Jet. I think it was January, one of the January dates in 1990. So so that's my number 2. I thought that was an important thing, even though it's become a little bit tired now for hardcore fans that are going tour after tour after tour. It's still really important. It's still really important for anyone who's seeing Paul for the first time that that they're seeing him do these songs, because if you are seeing him do, if you are seeing him live for the first time and he doesn't do Hey Jude or Let It Be, you're going to want your money back, aren't you?
Right. Yeah, you are. You were right there, Tony. It was Wembley on the 17th of January.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, that was it. That was the one I was at.
There you go.
Excellent.
There you go.
Very
Me and
cool.
Paul on the same record.
Very good. Yeah, and you made the good point where you gotta, the timelines, everything, you gotta think about it at that point in time.
Yeah.
Now we're what, 30 years, 30, 40 years later, we look at it differently now. But at that
Oh,
point in time,
that
and the
was a
fact that,
huge.
and
Yeah.
the fact that it was 10 years since he'd been live,
Yeah.
as well, was
I mean,
was he going
can
to tour
you
again? I mean, he
imagine?
talked about on in interviews, like, during, I think, Press to Play, interviewers were talking about, him going live again and wanting to go live, but then he would, his comment was, well, I want to make sure I go out on a,
On a good
on a really
album.
strong, on a good album. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
Tone, I can't imagine what it must have been like to have been there at that show, and you're waiting to hear "Hey Jude" for the first time live. I mean, that must have been incredibly, which we take for granted now, of course, 35 years later, as Tom mentioned. But to be there and to actually hear that live for the first time, that was
Incredible, incredible. It was absolutely amazing. And I'd seen him on the first time I ever saw Paul was on the 79 UK tour, and I went
Oh,
to
you did
three
get to see that.
shows.
Okay.
I went to 3 shows on that tour and went
Whoa.
to the concert for Bangladesh. And although I was absolutely, I was 18 then, and absolutely in awe of being in a room and breathing the same air as Paul McCartney. Having heard Wings Over America, I was a little bit disappointed with the set, because Wings Over America is such a strong.
You wanted to hear more Venus and Mars stuff.
I did,
Speed of Sound.
I did, because I think it's a better album than Back to the Egg for a start. But I did I wanted to hear these, most these songs live, so I was a little bit disappointed. But in the end, looking back on it now, we got a unique show, because a lot of the songs that he did on that tour, he's never done since.
Right.
You saw 3 dates on the UK 79
I
tour?
did, yeah.
No.
Which gigs?
These were in the dates where you actually went to the venue and queued up outside in the middle of the night, waiting for them to open the box office.
Which shows did you go to?
I went to 3 at Wembley Arena. It was a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday, and then I went to the concert of Kampuchea, which was on the 29th of December that year at Hammersmith Odeon.
So you actually were at the last time Wings played live.
I was, I was there.
No.
Yeah. And there was at that gig, there was this big rumor that guess who was going to get back together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what?
We
kind of
floating around that John's in the country and George is here and Paul's.
Well, we knew that wasn't true.
Incredible.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, good pick. I like that. Okay, I'll go next for number 2, and deciding on which one is more important. I guess I'm just going to go with forming Wings myself for number 2. He could have very easily gone solo just himself, and brought in studio or musicians and just did that. But the fact that he also included his wife Linda, which we all know, yes, not the most brilliant singer, but what she brought to the table vocally and those backing vocals, on Ram, and then later on with Denny.
And not just the emotional support too.
Right. And the emotional support. Yeah. And, help build his confidence again and all that stuff. But the fact that, then add Denny to those backing vocals as well, and just creating this new sound, and, having almost as a successful decade as the prior decade. I think it was, really, I think it had to have boosted his confidence. I knew he had some more confidence issues throughout the 70s as well, but the fact that, he had good musicians, which, besides what Linda wants to say and on certain interviews, Sywell, Juber, Jimmy, musicians that really played their asses off, and and these songs that we all love and admire. It just wasn't Paul, right? It's all these other musicians. Denny's contribution, with especially during London Town era.
Oh,
Yeah, so the fact that he's bringing in other musicians so he doesn't have to do everything, and I just love the fact that he did a band. What do you do when you're in the Beatles? You probably
Mm.
would just just do it yourself, right? But the fact that he brought in, and started another band, I think that was very, very important for his continued success, his continued confidence, and his legacy. I mean, look at now. I mean, what else do we know? He's doing Wings songs. After the Beatles, the next amount of songs he's doing after that is Wings stuff, right? He's not very
Mm.
rarely doing anything solo from 80 on, unless it's coming up or here today, right? I mean, he's not doing very many unless he's promoting a new album too. He's not doing actual solo songs. It's Beatles and Wings for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
A very brave decision as well
right,
to write on the back of the Beatles, to form this new band that are obviously going to be compared to the Beatles. He's got his missus in the band who's not proper musician, and he's
right,
going out and he's playing in turning up at universities and playing
right,
for 50p to get in, and coming
right,
home with a bag of cash.
right.
I bet very brave to do that at that time, and everybody that's been in Wings has given some value, but I think Linda's contribution is much bigger than I think that everyone thinks, and
Right.
I know it was dodgy at the beginning, when she was just learning, but you listen to the stuff that she's doing on and Venus and Mars, and Speed of Sound. Listen to what she does on City Love Songs. Her harmony's absolutely fantastic, and absolutely instrumental to that Wing sound, like you say. The combination of her and Denny singing together,
harmonies,
is that Wing sound, and very, very underestimated. I think she grew into that role.
Yeah.
And it's to be said too that he was really hell bent. Even at the end of the Beatles, he wanted to start from the ground up. He wanted to go back into the clubs and build it up again. And by that point, the Beatles didn't want to do it. So he's like, okay, fine, I'll just do it myself. And he was like, I've never actually started the band before, so how, we got to just start it, literally started it from scratch. And, that's, everything from bookings to how to get around and how to do, he had to just figure it all out, because he's like, well, the Beatles were already established when I joined. So,
there was no guarantee that Denny Lane was going to work out, right? I mean, there was no guarantee that Linda was going to stick through with it for the long haul, right? I mean, the fact that that first lineup lasted as long as it did is still kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, and I think that Big Barn Box illustrates that early period of Wings really kind of that gets glossed over in light of the big era of Wings of 75, 76. That first lineup was pretty damn good too, and then I think that
absolutely,
that box shows it, especially with the Live Over Europe live album in there too. Really shows this Sywell and Henry and the band really just cooking. It wasn't obviously it didn't last, but they were pretty good hot band too there for the early 70s in Europe.
Yeah. It is incredible, because when you think about Henry McCulloch's sort of rock background, and he's in this band and he's being told to play Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Right.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
And make 5 videos for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But see, that's what you would expect. But if you know McCartney, you should expect that, though, in a way. I mean, if you followed his Beatles career, right, you should expect all this wide range of genres of music, so.
Yeah, right. He tinkers with every genre, and we're all the better for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's why we get a White Album with so many diverse genres on it.
Yep. All right, Andy? Number
two. This one's a little bit different. Hopefully, I don't think anybody else may not have it, but if they do, great. My number 2 is going to be the legacy of his music videos that he has made and the promotional films, especially in the 80s. some in the 70s, early ones. But I think as time, and he's quoted as saying this because he gave some advice to Michael Jackson, make promotional videos, they'll help your career. And I think as time passes, and eventually
that should have been the only advice he gave him.
That's right.
Yeah. He shouldn't have told him to get into publishing.
Right, just make music videos. But I think this has been another glossed over aspect of Paul's career. We got the McCartney years DVD release in 2005, and that was it. And there's been loads more since. I think as time goes on, especially now we are in such a technological age of video, everything, it's going to be a good way if his archives, once he's gone, are curated well. These videos that you can watch the promotional films for are really going to be in a visual age for kids now to go look 20, 30 years from now. The man's got, probably 100 promotional films and then music videos that he's created. And I think, they've been, he's gotten, some of them are better than others, but I think, like obviously the ones from the early 70s, but the fact that they're going to last and linger, obviously in the video age of the MTV and the dawn of that, they became much more polished productions. Right. You look at Take It Away and Say, and the No More Lonely Nights ones, which are a little bit more of a proper music video. But you've got the stuff like Back to the Egg, 7 or 8, there's a video special for that. So I think that the videos that will last the test of time will go a long way in preserving his legacy. In a visual medium, not just for music, but to watch them visually and see what went into making them and how and we've got them on the box sets. But I think that the fact that you can just go look them up on YouTube will help that legacy.
Right, and it's interesting to think, if he didn't do these videos, would the songs have had, because sometimes videos do help the success of a single, right?
Sure.
Would I still think Say probably would have gone to number 1 without a video. However, would have Taken Away have gone to number 10 here in the States if it wasn't for a video.
Right.
You never know.
Think about the music video for Pretty Little Head, which opens up with the end of She's Leaving Home.
She left home, right?
Right, and then the girl running through the streets, and we see Paul's head on a building. Things like that. They're just so creatively and well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really important.
Yeah.
Number 1 time.
Okay, so was that? It's number 1. We're all number 1s. Okay. All right. I guess I'll go first on this one. Hopefully, no one else has this, but again, this will be really discussed much in the McCartney Legacy book. It'll be told a lot better than what I can say, but I'm going to go with April 10 of 1970. Paul, or at least the headline, Paul quits the Beatles. He officially leaves the Beatles. The release of the McCartney album. Now, there's going to be a few people out there that'll say, no, it was John's right to end the Beatles. Okay, well, John had 7-8 months to do this. Okay, and how long? Go ahead. He
Andy. Did, but he was advised to keep it under wraps.
Well, and he did,
and that's why he did
for 7-8 months. Yeah, but John had all of this time. Look, they wanted to get all of these deals done with EMI and Capitol. Those got done quickly.
The Northern Songs deal.
Right,
that was the deal.
Right. And those got done quickly after that meeting of John, announcing his departure, and Alan Klein saying, well, let's keep it quiet for a while. Okay, still, you got 7-8 months now of keeping it quiet. How long should he have waited? I don't think he had any obligation to wait. I think he was just as much as as important to the Beatles' success as John was, and I think him leaving, and starting his solo career, I think it was the right thing to do. Again, why should he wait? Why should even George or Ringo? Why should they wait for John to? Who knows when he would announce it? Who knows if he would have ever announced it? So for me, I mean, the most important thing he probably did in his solo career was say he's done, and got out of there, so
interesting. And but again, John was just pissed because he realized he missed the boat for the PR opportunity.
Yeah, I think you can understand that though, can't you? You can understand. Yeah, he's told the other three. That's what's happening. And then he's been told to shut up about it. And then Paul comes out and says that you can understand why John would be pissed off about that.
Right. Well, yeah, but then if I'm the other three,
yes,
yeah,
it's absolutely, it's absolutely. There's thunder, there's lightning, there's rain. I wasn't sure whether you could hear it, but
I don't know.
It's pretty loud here.
We struck a chord there with this topic.
Yeah, with this.
I think too. A part of it too is Paul.
That's John saying no.
That's exactly what it is. I think too. After the 6 or 8 months that you mentioned, Tom, Paul had to process it, and he was hurt, and then he was over it, and then obviously he was like, okay, you know what, I'm done with this now. Now I've processed it, I've grieved, I moved on. Now I'm gonna make the announcement, because I think he had spent those 6 to 8 months devastated that John said that, and then obviously Appletail going into hell, and Klein and Eastman's battling. Once he got over that, and then he started making McCartney, and then and then he's like, okay, I'm over it. This is over. Right. Guess what? We're done, because he took.
And you brought up a good point. Yeah. You brought up a good point with it, the depression and the drinking and whatnot. Look, I mean, John was okay with it, right? I mean, he's out doing all his things. He's releasing singles. He's doing, appearances with Yoko. He's doing, this and that with the Plastic Ono band. Obviously, he's doing fine, You're not taking under consideration what this might mean for the other three, right? Especially Paul. John, George, and Paul. They've been together since what, 58,
57. But I think on some level too, it affected John too. He just threw himself into work with Yoko, and almost as a distraction. On some level, it hurt him too. He just, he was all tied up with Yoko to kind of disguise a little bit of it, in my opinion. I think it hurt him as well. He would never admit it.
I think he had the cushion of Yoko because she was an artist, and ideas about this and about that, and these things were in tandem with his thinking as well. He had this kind of cushion, a distraction, I think, and I don't think that Paul had that. Paul was, so the Beatles, he was so into it, and he. When this happened. But I think, in a way, I think you're right, Tom. It had been 8 months since John had said it. Nothing had really moved on or had been resolved. And, he's probably thinking, well, look, this isn't going to get fixed. And I've now got to get on with it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, Andy, you're number one. Sorry, number one.
Yeah, my number one. You mentioned it before. Was your number 4? It's my number 1. It's Paul choosing to sue the Beatles to save ultimately the Beatles' legacy. That's clearly my number 1. Yours was also up there, but that to me is the number 1 single most important thing that he's done on his own to ensure that the legacy remained. And again, we've talked about he filed the writ on the 31st of December in 1970, and all the lawsuits all happened in January and February in the trial, and which he went to. I think you can see some photos of him and him and Linda when he had the beard and stuff, and obviously they were getting ready to work on Ram. So I think that singular decision is why the Beatles can continue to be relevant today and be marketable, and then because they would have been under the nose of the Klein estate, and that single-handedly saved himself and the other 3 Beatles and their families and their families' families. And at the time it wasn't viewed that way, and I think really ultimately that one decision also too, because Paul broke up the Beatles and he's suing the Beatles, also led critics to unfairly review his albums, because he's just the one who's suing them all. So now they're going to slog off Wildlife and Red Rose Speedway and call it granny music. And I think because of that decision to sue the Beatles, that really kind of put a bug in journalists' ears to view him a little more critically. Whereas John's going to get all the early praise, Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, and what's this Ram and McCartney, homemade crap. This is Paul McCartney. Where's Abbey Road? And I think they really took that decision when he sued them and really suited it to their advantage to make him look in a really horrible light. And history has shown that he was right and they were wrong. So Richard Williams and all you people that slogged off the albums 50-something years ago, you were wrong, okay? And history has shown that you were wrong because you just took a view and you didn't really know. But you know what? To be fair, nobody knew the circumstances at the time. History has shown that, obviously everything with Klein was doing and the Eastmans and all that crap aside. I know you can only look at and analyze things as they happen. So we've got history's hindsight on our side here, but I still think that they were wrong to do that. And I think the lawsuit provided the impetus for them to say, oh, he's just the one suing all the Beatles, so we're going to just slag him off with our reviews. Unfairly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't know what it was like for you guys in America, but I can remember the exact moment when that changed. You're absolutely right, and all the press were against McCartney, any excuse whatsoever to slag him off. They took it, and I remember the exact moment that it changed, and that was when all the stuff with Heather Mills was going on, when they were splitting up, and she was
public enemy number one,
absolutely having a meltdown, and Paul is keeping quiet, and she's going on this show and that show and slagging him off, and the press all of a sudden, the bloke that they've been slagging off for 30 years, wait a minute, he's a national treasure. You can't talk about our Paul McCartney like
right
that.
now.
And that's when it changed. That's when it changed. And whenever that was in 2007, was it? Or around then. Around that. And then all of a sudden, Paul McCartney was a national treasure here in Britain.
Right.
And who is this awful woman that's going on daytime TV and having a meltdown?
Right.
And saying he's the most awful person. You leave our Paul alone.
Right. and you bring up a good point.
We can slag Paul off, but you can't. That's
right.
kind of what that is.
Yeah.
And you bring up a good point too about him keeping quiet during that period, because he tended to he tried to do that throughout his that whole time. Especially during the John McCartney press feud. He wanted just keep it under the covers. It's just between him and I. But here's John trying to egg him on. Trying to get and he just wants to keep it quiet and move on with his life. But good point there. But Tone, okay, number one for you, my friend.
Okay, well, I'm not sure this is the most important thing that he's ever got right, but I think it was quite important for us from the fans' point of view, and it's a song Here Today. That's what I'm going for. So,
okay,
I think that this is one of these songs which was the right song at the right time. So, I can tell you guys are younger than me. I'm not sure when you got on this journey, this boat, but I was already a few years into mine when the day that John was killed, and I remember seeing on the news Paul being interviewed, coming out of the studio, total daze. It's a real chewing gum. It's a real drag, isn't it? And that was, oh my God, this is like the worst thing you could possibly say. I mean, obviously, I'm 19 at that time. A little bit later, you kind of realise that he is in total shock, and that isn't. It wasn't just a bit of a drag. But when Tug of War came out and he released this song Here Today, I think it kind of put things right. I think that we kind of needed a Beatle to come out and say something positive about what had happened, and we'd had all those years ago. George had already done that. I think the year before. But what we really wanted was Paul to come out and say something about his relationship with John. And this is only sort of 2 years after he's been killed. And I think that was, I think that was important from. I think it was important from his point of view, and I think it was important from a fan's point of view that he did come out and do this really lovely song about telling everyone how much he loved him, and I think that was important.
You think it was a moment of closure?
You
think it was a moment of closure for him too, Tone?
I think so. Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not sure if it's closure is the right word, because I think that there are moments where he still, I think it still hits him. One of the things that happened at Glastonbury, and I'm not sure if I mean, I really hope it wasn't staged, and you're not going to tell me that he did it all on the Get Back shows. But when he did the thing with John behind him, I've got a feeling. And when that finished, you could kind of see that he was physically moved by that. And he said, he said that, he said, I know this is virtual, but this is me and John singing together again. And then it cut, and you could see he was physically moved by that, and it kind of, and then it panned to people in the crowd, and these people weren't even born when John was alive, and there's tears running down their face. It was a really lovely moment. So I think that there are little moments that still catch him, like the Amoeba gig when he did Here Today at the Amoeba gig, and he starts to crack up during the song, and all credit to him for leaving that on the album to let us hear that, because there's only 1,000 people that actually saw that live in the shop. All credit to him for leaving it, but you can hear that his voice physically cracks, and he says something after the song. We're all grown up, we're allowed to cry if we want, or whatever he says. Whatever he says. So I'm not sure if it was complete closure, but I think it was. I think it might have been a bit of closure for us as fans, maybe. That
it was on record.
It's all like it's all okay, they did still love each other.
It bookends the beginning of that, post breakup, and then that kind of is the final word on it. Kind of to be okay. Like at the end of the day, we're just two friends that care about each other. So
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great number one, Tone, and then worthy of its ranking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, that puts a wrap on our opinions on 5 things that McCartney got right through his career. Now it's on to you. Leave in the comments section. What are some of the things that you think Paul McCartney got right? Whether it's working with Elvis Costello or Nigel or the Band on the Run album. I mean, there can be so many things. I mean, obviously these picks. That's not it. There's plenty more that Paul has gotten right throughout his.
It could be Cook of that. It could be Cook of the House. It could be Cook of the
House. Going back to Capitol back in 16? I think it was. I think was probably a good move on his part. But yeah, in the comment section, please let us know what your thoughts are. Tone, let's plug your channel one more time. Tell us a little bit more about it, and it's on YouTube, right? And tell them where to find it.
Well, you just look for Beatley Tone's Beatles channel, and you'll find it. And please, if you like what you've seen here, come along and have a look at some of the videos. And if you like them, please subscribe and like and notification bell and all the rest of the stuff. And it's a channel I'm trying to grow over time.
What's thoughts on what do you got coming up for the channel? More archive videos and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing. I'm quite enjoying doing I'm doing 2 sets of deep dives at the moment, and they take quite a long time to put together. And that's a deep dive review of. I'm attempting to do every album, over time. And I've got this great big league table of all the reviews that I've done so far, because what I'm doing is when I'm doing these reviews, I'm scoring each track out of 10, and then I'm dividing it by the number of tracks to get an average for the album, and then I'm plonking the album into this chart. So I'm pitching, John's album was against George's, against Paul's, and against the Beatles, and because everybody needs to know whether Yellow Submarine is a better album than Extra Texture. Nice. So I'm doing those, and I'm doing these deep dives into the archive collection where I'm showing everything that comes in the box and all the usual stuff. I'm going to be doing. So hopefully, if my Revolver arrives arrives on release day, I'll be doing the unboxing of those, and obviously there'll be a follow-up review of it, and my thought on the album and the outtakes and all that sort of stuff. And periodically I'm doing news items as and when they come up, and rankings and stuff like that. Rankings are always fun to do and for everyone to argue about. So
yes, everybody's got a love-hate relationship with ranking videos.
Always.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Tone. Andy, what you got coming up with your channel? Congratulations, you just surpassed 100 subscribers on your new channel.
Yeah, Andy's Music Vault, the other leg. When I get the time, which is almost never, I'll do another one. I try to post one once a month, but the Genesis one is about a month old now. So if I find time, I'll post another video on about another group that's non-Beatle related, and do a little bit of a deep dive myself into somebody else, maybe the Beach Boys, or the Who, or the Moody Blues, or ELO. Those are the ones that are floating around right now, possibly for the next one that I will do. But when it's up, you'll see it. So thanks for the people that have subbed to that channel. It's just something else to do outside of the Beatle world, which we're so connected in 24/7. It's nice to switch off from the Beatle world and do some other stuff. So that's what's cooking for me.
Cool. All right. My other show, Talk More Talk. By the time this is posted, we will have interviewed author Chris Englehart, who has a series of books about Beatles undercover. This is the first one, the Beatles Undercover, and what it is pretty much all the work that they did with other artists, whether or not they're producing other artists, lending their vocal talents or instrumental talents, whatever, whether it's Lennon producing Pussycats, or George helping Splinter, or Ringo drumming on many thousands of
Harry
Nilsson, exactly, yeah. Or Paul doing giving John Christie 4th of July, all of that good stuff is here in this volume, and there's a second volume. These books came out 10 years or so, and now he's just releasing the third book, which is a combination of the two and an updated version of the years that have passed since the release of his second book. So that's Talk More Talk, and that's on YouTube as well, so please check that out. For Two Legs, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Two Legs Podcast. Again, the YouTube channel, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney Podcast. Please like and subscribe to that show there, please. And if you're watching audio, and if you want to see the video, come on over, and we're welcome to see your comments. You can email us at twolegspodcast@gmail.com and all that good stuff. So Tone, I want to thank you again for coming on the show and giving us your thoughts on this topic. We had a great time with this, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future on the show. Andy, as always, my friend, it's so great doing this show with you over the last 3+ years now. So it's
incredible.
Yeah, and thanks very much for having me on. I've had an absolute ball. It's been great talking to both of you. For the first time I've ever done what do they call these? A collaborative video?
A guest spot or something.
The first time I've ever done one of those. So my virginity is now gone.
Tone, I hope for your sake your Amazon.
I've absolutely loved it. Thanks for having me on. If you ever want me to have me on again, just say the word and I'm here.
Will do. Tone, I hope for your sake your Amazon guy comes and you have your box on Friday.
Right. and don't forget, you never forget your first.
Right? No, you don't.
Anyways, okay, that's gonna wrap it up this week for us, guys. We'll see you again soon. So as always, have a great day and a beautiful night. Take care, everyone.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Listening to Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, hosted by Tom Hunyadi and Andy Nichols, with musical contributions by Dylan